So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you might be. And tonight we're just going to talk a little about thoughts, about thinking and feeling. And I want to talk about I'm okay, I'm not okay, is that okay? And we talked about that in the program that we run, where we're up and down on that all the time, and it's actually okay not to be okay. It's what we do with that. And does thinking create our reality? Is one of the questions. Is our reality the reality? Because I notice probably you've got reality and I've got reality, and they're probably somewhat different. In fact, I can guarantee it. I guess one thing that I've been noticing about relationships that when people get offside with each other, it's actually their realities getting offside with each other. It's not the people themselves, is it? It's their experience of life and where they're coming from and how they interpret things and what they're thinking at the time, and that's what makes up our reality, but it's not the reality. I don't think there is such a thing as the reality, is there? I'm not sure. No. Can't be, can there? Because we all experience it differently. So can we control our thoughts? And I think we've got to the stage where no, we can't. They just come and go, and I think that's most people will experience that. But yeah, I'm driving along, and all of a sudden I start thinking about something that happened last week or might happen in the future, and that just comes in from nowhere. I don't know where it comes from, and so that just keeps coming. And they say we have 40 or 80,000 of those a day, and we can't control what comes in. It just does. And I guess the thing is that we don't always have to act on those thoughts, and they're not actually real. They're an illusion we're making up anyway, so which is rather interesting. And are our feelings as a result of our thinking? Is it all about our thinking? And at any moment we can have a new thought, and often we can experience that, can't we? We get a new look at things, or we're in a place and suddenly we think of something different, or we stop doing that and think about something else, and lots of things change. And I want to talk about from the black hole to bliss, being on the continuum. So that's what I'm going to go through. So here we go. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay, and I'm not okay. And there's that sort of line, isn't there, that we can probably go up and down on that line. And sometimes I'm not okay for no apparent reason. Sometimes I know that I'm not okay because of this, that, or the other thing. But it just seems to happen. And here we go. There's me being okay and me not being okay. and we were actually born like that, weren't we? There was times I was listening to Wayne Dwyer having a conversation with Oprah Winfrey, and she was asking about. I've been working through a book on the Tao Te Ching, which was written 2,500 years ago by a guy called Lao Tzu. I don't know if you've come across that.
No.
But Wayne Dwyer, this guy wrote 82 verses. I think Lao Tzu wrote 82 verses. And they're, of course, quite, sort of Asian, sort of mystic. You read the verse and you think, what the hell does that mean? So Wayne Dwyer wrote a book called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. And what he's done is he's spent the whole year going through these 82 verses and unpacking them a little bit and putting them into English. And it ties in very well, I think, with the three principles. And he was saying to Oprah Winfrey, when we were created at conception, it's like these children of yours, isn't it? They're now conceived, and there's this baby growing, and it's having a great time, eh? It's just lolling away there and enjoying itself, and not a care in the world, and enjoying life, and probably being well looked after by the mother that's looking after herself. And Wayne Dwyer said, well, that's the miracle of birth, isn't it? We're created, and it is a miracle. And we're created, and we have this first 9 months of absolute bliss, and then we give birth, and people will say, "Thank you, God, for the miracle. We'll take over now." like parents and teachers and all sorts of things. So, and that's sort of all downhill from there, right? And so we, when we were children, we used to be able to do this. I'm okay in 1 second. You watch children; they do it. They're okay 1 second, and all of a sudden they're and you can either distract them or they change their mind, and usually they'll come back up quite quickly, and they're doing that all the time, and they're very emotional, aren't they? And their nappy's dirty, or they don't quite get their own way, and they throw a tantrum or whatever it is. But normally they sort of move backwards and forwards quite quickly, and so we were born with this ability. And when you think about it, that's true, isn't it? We all did that, and 1 minute the world was the best place, and we were broken-hearted. The next minute we're giggling. There was a little YouTube clip of this child sitting in the back of the car in the car seat, and mother was filming him, and he was grizzling away, and all of a sudden this music came on, and I don't know whether you've seen it, and all of a sudden the music, he just goes, bang, and it's a whoa.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
all in an instant,
Yeah.
And so we were born with that ability, and then we became an adult, and we sort of do we do this stuff, we get down there, something happens, or that we go, and we can finish up in quite a different place, and that might be 5 minutes, or it might be an hour, or it might be half a day, or a day. Some people go on longer than that, don't they? And some people might take a week to get over that, or even longer. And even worse, this can become a habitual and normal over anything and everything. Everything seems to be a drama, and we make stuff out of something that we don't need to make anything out. And I think that's recognisable. We can recognise that for ourselves, and we can certainly see it in other people, can't we? And even worse, we can make living below the line permanent. That's where, and I often think you listen to people talking, life's a drama, and even the little things seem to be massive. And I don't know if it's just about positive thinking above the line. I think it's more than that. It's a bit of what we know about the three principles. I think is very helpful to know that you don't have to stay in that place. But a lot of people don't know that, and they're suffering from the outside world, which is just doing its stuff, and how they're responding to that. So I think that's quite common, and I don't know whether you've experienced the times of being down there, and I think we all have. And,
yeah. But I would probably not be normal if I didn't.
No. Well, that's an interesting thought, isn't it? Like this is about being human. But we didn't do it. We didn't do it here. Back here with the. We got out of that stuff very, very quickly. So I think we become serious, and life becomes more complicated, I suppose. And then we've had a lot of input from parents and teachers and all sorts of things, and we start taking on this that the world's an outside-in place and not an inside-out place. And I think that's the misunderstanding. I think because I think when we can get the understanding that it's actually got nothing to do with what out there. It seems to, very much to, but normally it doesn't. It really doesn't. It's not anything to do with that. It's how we're responding to it. And is it just a result of our thinking? Being above the line or below the line is a question.
And I suppose the danger is that if you're down there most of the time, it's very seldom that something actually just raises you slightly above the line, and then you're back down below it again.
Yeah, it can become habitual, can't it? And you come across people, and I'm sure you do. And I don't think, from my observation, I don't think you spend a great deal of time below the line, do you?
I try not to.
No, because your attitude and how you work in life, and but we and you hear it in conversation, don't you? It's everything's a drama, and I suppose it's like Shortland Street all over again, isn't it? So I guess the question is, we still have this ability, and I think that's what the 3 principles got me to. We have that ability. It's innate. We were born with it. It's just that we've lost the plot somewhere along the line, or come to believe other things, or had experiences that seem more than. It means it's so real that this thing out there is actually affecting me, so we take that on as that's how it is. And of course, when we do that, it's out of our control. It's other people are sort of running our lives, if you like. And then I thought about this this whole idea of the life continuum, and where we can look at it the other way around is that as we're going through life, up this end is let's see what this comes up. Yeah, up this end is bliss, and up this end is the black. Down this end is the black hole. So they're the extremes, It's like, and I think we all go up and down on those. And I was brought up in the positive mental era that meant that you had to be up the bliss end. That was expected to be up there. And sometimes it's like, well, no, I just wasn't. Things happen in life, and I wasn't okay. And I dived down to the black hole end. Fortunately, I don't think I've ever experienced that black hole like I know some people have.
No.
But I've been very uncomfortable and not okay. And then circumstances change, or I get over it, or do something about it, and I can move up the other end. And I think I'd certainly like to spend most of my life up the bliss end, because life's too short to do anything else.
That's right.
And it seems to me bliss is about being contented with whatever's going on in life. That you have a calmness about, and you're living in the present, and when things go, you go, oh, that's interesting, rather than diving below the line. And I think when you've got that clear mind, then you can see it for what it is, and you just say, well, this is how it is, rather than not wanting it to be that way, because I think not wanting it to be that way is what flicks us down the other end. We rally against the fact that it's unjust, or it's not okay, or this shouldn't happen, or it's part of my belief system, and that can drag us down that end, I think. And so I think there's more happiness up that end, and there's more options. I think when you're operating more above the line, you're okay. You can. What seemed to be a problem the other day now, it's like, oh, no, it's not an issue any longer, or I've got all sorts of options to cope with it, rather than just being stuck with nothing. Because I think when you're down the black hole end, your options get less, don't they? So down this end, it's sort of and I really feel for people that are down here. When I talk to them, I've become, I think with the 3 principles, I've become a lot more compassionate, in the sense of, I think I have been, but I don't think I've ever recognised quite so much that this is what people do experience, and it's not okay. It's a dark place. There's a lot of pain and hurt. It can be sad there, and sadness is there's no cure for sadness, is it? Things happen, and we can't change it. People die, and people do different things, and I don't think there is no cure for that.
No.
In a sense, I guess it's how we respond to it. So it's the pits,
Yeah.
And you can certainly be very unhappy down there. And I think when you are down there, you don't seem to have too many options. You can't see very much, can you? It's
No, you can't. No.
overwhelming and enveloping, and I think there's a lot of people are more down that end. I've noticed, they talk about mental health, but even in the talking about mental health, they're actually talking about mental ill health, really. They're not talking about this end up here, because it's like, well, it's a bit woo-woo, and no, you can't stay up there all the time, and there's these beliefs about that as well. I think my life is very blissful.
Yeah.
What have we got to complain about when you stack it up, eh?
I know.
And you come into that gratefulness bit when you start looking around what's happening to people and circumstances that they find themselves in. And I just think I've been very blessed in my life. I don't know about you. So I've gone through the golden era. I missed national service, and I've never been without a job. I've never been hungry. I wouldn't even know what that was like. And so you start thinking about that, and what is there to be unhappy about, really? But who knows how life's going to go? It changes, doesn't it? And so I think these are extremes up here. I think the black hole is very extreme, and I think perhaps bliss is, sadly, bliss is a bit of an extreme, isn't it? But so, well, you can't be up there, you can't be there. You can't be there, and you can't stay up there. And I'm thinking, well, why not? It's like, and if we just take it as contentment, like bliss, really. If you're contented with life and what's going on and the way you are, that seems pretty blissful to me. And but then again, living life, we can go up and down on that quite easily. And there will be times in our lives, for whatever reason, when we will all visit this end of the continuum. It comes with the territory as that sort of Four Noble Truth stuff, where life is suffering. It just comes with being alive, doesn't it? And,
being able to realise that you won't actually stay in that place is, makes all the difference. But there are some people that can't see their way out of that place.
Yeah. And that must be horrible, to not have hope and not think this is it, and it can't be any different. And I suppose, like that guy down there, the more you do that, the more that it becomes habitual, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of that going on out there with our young people, for argument's sake. They're not seeing any hope, and their experience of life hasn't been very good, and why is it going to get any different? And it's just sad, isn't it? So is it possible to live at this end of the continuum all the time?
No, well, not all the time. No.
And I suppose that's what I think about. I'm okay and I'm not okay, and it's okay. It's like if we accept that we are going to move up and down on this continuum, and even when we're down the bottom there, it is what it is. And like you were just saying before, it's going to pass. It's going to move on somewhere, and different. You wake up tomorrow and it's different, or something changes, or we change our thinking about it, or we go and look for some help or whatever. And I think when we know we have the ability, there's always hope there to be able to move from that. And I'd like to, I'm going to take a stance and say, well, I reckon we could be up at the top there all the time. Because it's not that much, contentment. If you'd be pretty content with your life, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think also being mindful actually makes you come to that place a little wee bit more often, I think, because you can be just lying on the grass somewhere in the sun and and not be mindful of things that are happening around you, which means that you'd be lower on that line than you would be if you just suddenly take notice of the birds chirping, the sounds around you, and the calmness, how it makes you feel. So and again, if we you won't get that unless you think about it and focus on it, will you? You don't.
There's a need to do that. You won't hear and see those things. If you don't, you can't do anything outside your thinking, can you? If you don't think about, I want to listen to the birds, or I want to be in the present, and make almost like a conscious decision to do that. Then it's easier to do that. And I don't think bliss needs to be any more than being content. We may not think that's blissful, but when I look around me, I think it is very blissful. And, it's an okay place to be. And I know it might change tomorrow. And that's part of living, isn't it? And that can be okay too. I don't have to enjoy it there, but I do know that the possibility is that I'm not going to stay there, and I'm going to move more up towards this end. And I don't think I have to do that. I don't think I necessarily have to be intentional about that. I just have to change my response to the world, I think. And again, this is the ability we were all born with. It's like this grandchild of yours is going to come out, and in this first year it's going to be blissful, eh?
Oh, I know. It's just going to be.
It's going to be so collared and cuddled and loved and fed, and it's just like. So we all started no, we didn't all start life off that way. We know the realities of a lot of kids don't get that. But I certainly did. I was well loved and well supported in my family, and I'm very grateful for that, because when I hear stories of people that weren't and they're still suffering from that now, that's a bit sad. Yeah. So, and I think as we grow up, if you like, as we start thinking about things and we start noticing things and getting a little bit older, and what we just used to pass off now becomes a bit more serious, and then I start developing my ego, like becoming almost separate from the world, like I'm special and people shouldn't really treat me like that. And, we did that number 10 thing. I'm a 10.
Oh, yes.
And there was a friend of mine, and she's really good at doing these things, and she used that an analogy with her children, like a metaphor, and she had this very nice, clean, brand new $10 note. And she said, you see this, and it's very nice, but it's actually worth $10. And would you like this? And they all said, yes, they would like that. So she crumpled it all up, screwed it all up in a ball, and said, well, would you still like it? And they said, well, yeah, of course, it's still worth $10. It's like, it still has that value there. So then she scribbled all over it, and then she poured water over it. She did all sorts of things. Do you still want this $10? And he said, well, of course, yeah, it's still $10. Oh, it's beaten up and scratched and whatever. It's still. But I thought that was a lovely metaphor for that 10 that never goes away. Hey,
No.
What it looks like, and the kids really related to that.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's going to change us from that is our thinking, I reckon, because it's that innate well-being that we were born with is still there. And the only thing that's going to change that is our moment-to-moment thinking. And I think when we can be aware that that's what it is, and nothing else really. I'm not saying life's just all going to go sweet, because it doesn't, does it? And I don't think that knowing about the 3 principles is going to change the world. But it does change the way we can respond to that and see it for what it is. And as you say, being mindful and living in the moment is key to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think when we're out in the future and we get anxious about what's going to happen and what we should be doing and what other people are doing, and I think as a mother, that comes with a territory, doesn't it? I think you sort of live with that for the rest of your life, about being concerned for your children and their welfare and all sorts of things. It's all part and parcel. Not that men don't do that, but I think women do it. They're much more attached to that, I think.
Yeah.
Bit of a generality, but I think it's true. And so, yeah, you can get quite anxious for other people, can't you?
I know.
Yeah.
Like kids... Yeah, you'll have a conversation with your kids and you get off the phone and your stomach's stewing away, and that might go on for a bit of a week, and you're wondering how they are, and next time you speak to them, it was only like a couple of hours.
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah.
You've been stewing on it all week.
It's crazy, eh?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think, what experience we've had in the past, if we go back then and we're still holding those things and we haven't sort of moved on from that, and we can be resentful about that, or that's affected the way we see life and all sorts of things like that. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for being in the present moment, isn't there, and noticing our thinking in that present moment, because, you only got to get another thought and life changes, doesn't it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Going back to every thought has a feeling attached to it, and we're living in the feelings of our thoughts, really, aren't we? And most people, I notice, when they get offside with other people, they're coming out of it emotionally, and they're in a lower place. They're further down on that continuum, and they're not really operating very well. And most of us, when we get into that place, are operating on our feelings and not on our thoughts. And it's not about not having those thoughts, because you can't stop that either. It's just noticing that, isn't it? Do I need to act on this thought? Do I need to do anything about it? Do I need to solve it right now? I just did a couple of testimonial videos for a couple of women I've been working with for a few weeks, and I was really heartened by the fact that they're both saying, well, they're noticing their thoughts now, and both of them have been quite sort of quite emotional, quite run a lot on their feelings. And they're saying, well, we just noticed that, and now I have a thought, and I think, well, I don't actually need to do anything about that, or do I need to do that today? Usually not, just let it sit, and tomorrow it looks a bit different.
Yeah.
But when we get into that compulsion stage, I think it's not quite so easy to do, because the feeling becomes so strong. It's almost like I've got to do something about it.
Yeah, I know. One thing I have a bit of a challenge with is with some things that people do that really annoy me, and they might do it consistently, like maybe when driving or just sitting there, and I'm busy trying to think to myself, now you're only thinking about the fact that this is actually annoying you. Try to think, this isn't annoying you, it's just something that's happening. And I really struggle with that, I must admit.
Yeah.
In the end, sometimes I have to take myself out of the situation so that I don't end up being grumpy about it and saying something.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the person who's doing it actually has no idea they're doing it.
No, they're just living their life. Yeah.
And if I mention something, do I? And I'm thinking, well, I might end up hurting their feelings. It's me that's got the problem. It's not them.
Yeah. And I guess it's more noticing that, isn't it? That when it comes back to those different realities, isn't it? The way you're experiencing that and the way they're experiencing it are just completely different.
Yeah.
And that is your reality, but it's only coming from your experience and your thoughts. It's not anything to do with them, really, is it? Yeah. And but it does seem that way, doesn't it? It's like, well, if they just stopped doing it, I wouldn't have any problem.
No, exactly.
So, but because it does seem so real, and I think that's the misunderstanding that we've all been brought up with. We've all been brought up that this person creates my unhappiness or creates my happiness by doing what they're doing. And this really turns it on its head. So, well, no, it's never been like that, and it isn't. And I think once you embrace that, and I don't think you ever get hold up the sign and say I've made it, because in the moment. I got really titchy at a driver today, and I've been quite good at doing that. It's just like, well, especially over the last few months where you've had a lot of visitors in town. But this guy in front of me was just like bizarre, driving. And he was probably looking at the scenery and enjoying all the scenery, and look at that, and slowed down, and nearly went off the road. This is down the lakefront, And then he sped up, and then he slowed down, and then he was wandering all over the road, just like, it was probably 8 o'clock in the morning. He could have been forgiven it, and it was a touristy, one of those tourist things. So I don't think he was drunk. I think they were just admiring the scenery, and didn't even realise I was there.
They were in the moment.
In the moment, they were very much in the moment. Yeah. I've been noticing, when people beat their horns, because it's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's usually it's an angry response. The horn's put there to warn people, isn't it? Or you're going to back into me or stuff. But I don't think they get used for that very much, do they? It's like, and I see people beeping horns. I'm thinking, well, why would you get upset about that? People do stupid things, and I have got a lot better at that than what I have. I've never been a road rager as such, but I mumble a lot, and still do. But I just recognise that that's going to happen. Why would I want to spend my life getting upset about that? And, because people, they're not doing it to me purposefully. They're not going out of their way to annoy me or doing this on purpose.
You're there. That's the problem.
Well, that is the problem. And does beeping your horn at him make any difference? I don't know. Sometimes maybe. So to sum this up, our feelings are not created by outside events, people, circumstances, or experience. Is that a complete truism, or is that sometimes? Our feelings are not.
My thoughts.
yeah. It's not created by events or people or circumstances or experience. But
No,
that's what we've all grown up with, but it does feel like it sometimes.
Yeah. You still have to keep reminding yourself that it's actually not.
I think that's it. It's staying in this conversation, isn't it, and staying with it, because I think we do need reminding of that. I do constantly, I think, and I'm really fortunate because I'm working with us all the time.
Yeah.
And I've been a bit disappointed that I didn't pick that up and carry on with those groups like I intended to, and supported people, kept them in the conversation, I think. But anyway, I didn't, so that's the reality of it.
That's right.
But I think we all, having these conversations that I was found with these two women, just consistently having these conversations and what they're noticing. I mean, they are both quite clear that, one of them, that they're friends, and they're in a situation where one's husband decided he didn't want to live with her anymore, and the other one wishes her husband didn't want to live with her anymore. So they got the same problem, but they're different.
Yeah.
And they've both been quite emotional, and I've got these videos that I took of them the other day, and I'm going to use them as a testimony, and they're both transformed their life, really, just by being aware of the three principles and not doing anything. They just don't do anything. It gets confusing at first, just being in that place and listening and noticing. So you don't have to do anything. And I think that's the whole thing with this. But it is staying in the conversation, I think, which is useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what I want to build into my practice with people is to have these ongoing things that's available, whether people choose to. It's like tonight, it would be nice if there's more people so we could have more experience, but it doesn't actually really matter, does it?
No.
So we live in the feelings of our thoughts, moment to moment.
Yeah.
It can change really quickly, can't it? We've all had that experience, and it's definitely possible. And our feelings are a result of our thinking. Is there any other way that can be? It's not. And anyway, we can have a new thought, and life changes. And that's what Wayne Dwyer's talking about in this book. Change your thinking, change your life. And I think that's what we're in the process of doing. We can go on doing what we were doing and getting upset about how we. But I was just laughing the other day. I don't know whether you saw on YouTube. There was these text messages coming out, and there was he's at work and he's busy, and his wife texted him and said, "What say we go out for dinner tonight?" And he goes, "Yeah, great idea. Yeah, good." And she said, "Well," text back, "where will we go?" And then he starts the text off going, "Well, bloody hell, don't but and all of a sudden he deletes all that and comes back and said, "Well, I'm not sure. You choose." And she comes back and says, "Well, I'd rather you choose." And he starts reacting with these text messages, and then you can see it deleted again and put in a reasonable response.
Yeah. And
then she gets down to a sense where he's getting quite frustrated with this, and sort of says, "Look, and in the end he says, "Well, what would you like to have?" She said, "Oh, well, I don't know. You make a suggestion." So he said, "Well, what about Indian?" She said, "Oh, no, I don't think I want Indian." "Well, what about Thai?" "Oh, no, I don't feel like Thai." And you can imagine him, he's busy at work. And
exactly.
And then he gets a bit frustrated, and they have this habit of putting two little crosses, as kisses after every message. And then he leaves the kisses off, and she said, "No kisses, are you upset with me?" Away it goes. I mean, I've come across people having terrible arguments on text, for the same reason. It's like, nuts. And so, I guess that those things happen, and it's like, if we can stay out of that frustration or that judgmental part. I mean, I think that's a big thing. We had a whole session on that, didn't we?
Yeah.
We can be very, very judgmental, and I think I would like to think that I wasn't, but I know that I was, because I've changed this year. I think with the three, I've got much more compassionate about thing and thinking, well, it's just as simple as, why do people do this? But, I wouldn't like to be in their situation because I don't know what's going on in their life or what has. And I can only be really grateful for my life. So it's stepping back from that rather than making a judgment on it. And, I notice people that we're all very opinionated, aren't we? We have an opinion. Everybody's got an opinion about something. Yeah. And I think that's the thing I've got less of now with the 3 principles. I'm not quite so opinionated as I was in my work. It was necessary for me to stay out of that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and I could do that quite well, but it's still going on underneath, and now it's going less underneath than it used to be. So
yeah.
I could sail with that, and I could listen with an open mind on and sort of going, I was doing this bit down here, and so yeah, I think it's certainly made a difference for me in the sense of being much more compassionate about things, and I don't think that means that I have to let people walk over me or do anything like that.
Yes, I think sometimes I can be thinking things in my mind. Oh, how stupid are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And think all these things. I'm just going to tell you what I think about you, and yet what comes out of my mouth is absolutely entirely different and seemingly quite thoughtful and mindful. And sometimes it absolutely amazes me that something just so entirely different can actually come out of my mouth and actually what my brain's thinking.
Yeah.
That I really do want to say.
Just as well,
Yeah.
So you've got a good process of, deleting that and coming out with something else.
That's right. Yeah, it's like word check.
So that's where I suppose I want to spend my life looking like that rather than that fella down there.
And you do see a lot of people actually looking like that down there, don't you?
You do, unfortunately.
And sometimes when you actually get talking to somebody and their face actually lightens up and they don't look like that anymore, you actually sort of think, oh, maybe they're not just a grumpy so-and-so all the time. They're actually quite a different person, but that's what they portray to everybody around them.
Yeah. It was quite interesting. I just bumped into a woman the other day, and I don't know how the circumstances work, but I got chatting to her, and she said to me, I'm off to work now, and I'm really not looking forward to going to work, And she said, and I'm really stressed. And she said, and I'd only met this woman, just in the moment, if you like. She said, I'm so stressed I'm not sleeping. Because I'm not sleeping, I'm so stressed. And it's like, oh, well, I suppose I'll have to go to work. I'm thinking, wow. I thought she was joking. I honestly thought she was just having me on,
Oh, really?
But no, that was what was going on for her. She was in such a mess. And so you think about her going to work and working her way through that and spending the day like that and then going home and not sleeping and the same thing happening. It's a pretty horrible place to be. So I think with this, like you're saying, in the moment we can do that differently, can't we? And I think if we start being grateful for what we have got, that certainly does make a shift, doesn't it? When you start looking at all the things we've got to be grateful for. And,
I've got a Facebook friend who I know a little bit, and I know that she does suffer from anxiety and depression sometimes, but she's busy reaffirming it all the time on Facebook, and every time she posts about what depression or what anxiety and that's about, I'm sort of thinking, you're actually not doing yourself any favours by doing this. People she's just really looking for some sort of reaction from people, I suppose. And the same thing about, oh no, I've got work tomorrow sort of thing. And I'm sure it's actually not that bad for her once she's there, but that's what she's putting out there all the time.
Yeah. And I think that you don't even notice you're doing it. I think that's the worst thing about it, isn't it? You're living in that space and that becomes normal. Yeah. And, that's why people saying, I'm stressed about this and I'm stressed about that. Stress has now become a normal part of our life. and it's an expectation that you have to have stress to do things as well.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, so here's my little bouncy ball. Hey, look at that! And we talked about that analogy of the beach ball. Yeah, it's natural, and I think that's us. Our natural, what we were born with, is like the beach ball. It bounces around on the top and above the line, if you like. And the only way that we can get it below the line is actually have to put quite a lot of work into, or thinking to get it under the water and keep it there. And it takes a lot of effort, doesn't it? And the moment you let it go, it's just going to pop back up again. So it's an interesting analogy, isn't it, in the sense of we were born that way, and that's part of who we are. And so if we're doing anything different from that, we're doing something about holding that ball below the line, really. Yeah. And I don't think there's any right or wrong about that. I think it's just noticing and being aware of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So was that useful?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always good to be reminded about things so that you can sort of go away and just sort of be aware and just check yourself.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And that's that mindfulness you're talking about, isn't it? If I can be mindful of what's going on for me, and I can catch myself in that moment going, oh, woe is me, or the language that I'm using, or that, do I really have to respond to this? Do I have to do anything with this thought? Can I park it, or can I change it? Because if it's as simple as our thought is creating all this, then we can actually do something about it, can't we? But not always.
I can start trying to do a little bit of let it go, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
in my mind, without actually physically doing it in the car. And I think it actually worked to a small degree.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel so anxious in the pit of my stomach.
Yeah.
And I could actually just not become quite aware of what it was annoying me.
Yeah, because I think when you get caught up in that, you go down this end, don't you? And you have less options and less ways of thinking about that. And you get caught up in it.
Yeah, it just gets worse and worse, and the feeling gets worse. And then you might be able to let it go for a while, but when the person does it again, all of a sudden, instead of it building up, it comes in at the level that you left it at.
Yeah.
It wasn't that base level anymore. It was up here.
Yeah. And I like we're having this discussion, and in the helping sort of stuff, with counselling and the helping the people helping, they often use the analogy of, do we want to be the ambulance at the top of the cliff or the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff? And my question is now, why do you need an ambulance? It's like,
yeah.
It's a given that you must have an ambulance somewhere, wherever you're catching people, and that, to me, that's that mental unhealth that people are talking about. If you don't need an ambulance at all, how would that be? What would it be? What would I need? How would I need to live my life to not need an ambulance?
Yeah,
interesting. I'm going to stop the recording now, and
okay.
If I can find out how to do that, here we go. Stop recording. So thanks for listening, and to everybody out there, and it's been me and Tony in a great discussion here, and we hope this has been useful. So we'll talk next week. Cheers.